Hello, hello, hello. We're going to cover natural resources, some intangible assets, maybe. Exciting stuff. So, natural resource accounting. Natural resources, oil, timber, mineral rights, things like gold, copper mines. Um, so, generally, any type of thing you can think of that nature creates. All right. So the cost of acquiring a natural resource are going to be capitalized, and those will follow the same rules as before. It's purchase price, but there may be other things like commissions and so forth, tax, transaction taxes, and things that go into that. There's a new term though. Instead of depreciation or amortization, these are depleted. So there's depletion. Um, but more frequently, this is really going to be an example of where we take one cost out of one asset, and instead of expensing it, we're just transferring it to another asset. Okay, so that happens frequently, um, or maybe it happens frequently with other costs, but it's just more readily apparent with natural resources. So in this example, Mighty Mines pays 432,000 to extract ore from 425,000 ton mineral deposit. So an engineer came up with that estimate. Before the company purchased the rights, uh, because they purchased the rights, they expect a residual value of zero. So when you buy rights, you can either buy just the rights, or if you buy ore, sometimes you can buy, or natural resources, you can buy the land, and the land may be worth something after you say you take the coal out or something. But because they just bought the rights to the ore, there's no residual value. During the first year of production, the company extracted 70,000 tons, record the purchase of the rights, and then transfer the ore into inventory. So they buy the rights. All we have is a purchase price here, not a lot of complications. Mineral right asset, which would be classified as a long-term asset. Calculate the cost of ore. I'll spell check didn't catch that. Ore. Transferred cost of ore. Transferred to inventory. So I'm just using this word depletion. 70,000 tons is how much we took out. The cost per ton is 432 divided by 425. And just for kicks, for those of you playing along at home, that's 1.0165. And let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 significant digits. That would work fine. Put it all together, you have 71,153. And does that make sense? You have 432, which is roughly 1/6. So 70 over 425 is about 1/6 of it, and that's about right. So it's about 1/6 of the total cost. Now you reduce the mineral right asset and you transfer it to inventory raw ore. Okay. Typically the ore is then subsequently processed. So then you would transfer that ore. If you have 10 tons of ore for 1 ton of copper, then you would transfer that on that basis to inventory raw copper and so forth. Okay, and maybe that raw copper is then sold, and you'd have a cost of goods sold. All right, so that's how to deal with a natural resource. Let's look at intangibles. Um, so, what is an intangible? It's not a financial instrument, and it's not a tangible asset. Okay, it has no physical form. So usually these are created by contractual rights or legal rights. Um, Now, I should be clear here, this is the accounting classification. Accounting will classify them as limited life, indefinite life, except for goodwill. And then goodwill is its own special accounting intangible asset. The classification is important because it tells you whether or not you'll amortize. So only the limited life is amortized. The other two are not amortized. Research and development costs in all cases are expensed. That's under US GAAP. IFRS is actually different, but we're not going to go there right now. Here are some examples in the world. Patents have a limited life. Some franchises, but not all, have a limited life, and some licenses have a limited life. So, what am I talking about with a license? A broadcasting license, radio station licenses. Those are transferable. So there are also licenses down here that have an indefinite life. But you might have a license to sell a product in a region for the first 5 years, and after that you might have to bid for it again. So that would have a limited life. Copyrights have a limited life. Customer list. If you have a list of customers, guess what? People get old, people pass away, people move. So customer lists have a limited life. All right? And then we have goodwill down here, which has an indefinite life. Trademarks and trade names have indefinite lives. And then some franchises have indefinite lives. The St. Louis Cardinals is referred to as a franchise, and it is a franchise. Major League Baseball is the corporate headquarters, but each team in Major League Baseball has local ownership, and that franchise is owned by that ownership. So it has an indefinite life. Okay, so here's a real quick example. Buckley purchases a patent for $10 million, and they patent A, and they internally produce patent B. So they bought one for $10 million. They had their team develop a patent internally for $5 million in research and development costs. We're going to record the acquisition of each. So whenever a patent is purchased, and I should say patent A to be clear, you definitely record it as an asset, just like buying a truck or a building. When it's internally generated, here they spent $5 million. They still have a patent, but they will not have a patent asset on the books. Research and development costs are expensed in the U.S. Okay? The credit would have been they would have paid cash, and some accounts payable, some credits and prepaids. But regardless, the main thing here is under U.S. GAAP, expense R and D. All right, that's really the take-home message. Now, what about amortization of intangibles? You have to classify the intangible as limited life or indefinite life. When they are amortized, so when you do have a limited life, and you will amortize those, there will not be an accumulation account, like an accumulated depreciation. There is no accumulated amortization. Instead, amortization expense will reduce the intangible asset account directly, so you credit the asset account directly. So we'll have this problem with patent A. Buckley buys it for $10 million, and then they also buy a trademark for $10 million. Assume the patent has a trademark, or excuse me, the patent has a legal life of 20 years and a useful life of 10 years. Okay? Most patents do start with a legal life of 20 years. If that's all the information you have, then the legal life will be the useful life. But if you're given the useful life, then use it. So 10 million divided by 1 million equals $1 million in amortization expense. And notice no accumulation account here. We just reduce the asset directly. For the trademark, we don't do anything here. Trademark has an indefinite life, therefore there's no amortization. All right, so in the next slide, let's see if we can finish this one off. This is goodwill, and we're just going to do the recognition. Goodwill does not have any amortization, and we will not be doing the impairment. So goodwill is only created when one company buys another company. It's only created in an accounting sense. And it will equal the price paid less the liquidation value of the company. So what is the liquidation value? It's if the company sold all its assets and paid off all its liabilities, what would the company have? That's its liquidation value. So if the company sold all its assets, paid off all its liabilities. So Big Co acquires Little Co for $2 million. The fair value of Little Co's assets is $6 million. Fair value of its liabilities are $5 million. How much goodwill is created upon acquisition? So they're purchasing for $2 million. The company could sell its assets, pay off all its liabilities, and have $1 million left over, but instead they're selling for $2 million. And this is the way it is with companies. Companies are worth more usually together than in pieces. I mean, it's why we have companies. Things work better together than if they're all just spread out. And the goodwill that would be created is $1 million. All right. Yeah, and that definitely does it for intangibles. We'll finish off next with return on assets, which is my favorite ratio. Absolutely, by far.